The words hit me like ice water. I set my wedding for the same day as yours. My sister Emma's voice carried that familiar, honey-sweet tone that had always preceded her worst betrayals. The restaurant around us seemed to dim as our parents burst into delighted laughter, as if scheduling her wedding to destroy mine was the most charming coincidence imaginable. I felt the stem of my wine glass grow slick in my palm as Emma continued, "You don't mind, right? I mean, yours is just going to be small anyway." Her emerald eyes sparkled with manufactured innocence, while our mother nodded approvingly. The taste of copper flooded my mouth as I bit down on my tongue, forcing my face to remain perfectly calm. "Of course not," I heard myself say, the lie sliding out smooth as silk. "Whatever makes you happy." My name is Rachel. I'm 29, and I work in corporate event planning. This is the story of how I taught my family that silence isn't surrender, it's strategy. Growing up, I learned early that noise meant trouble in our house. Emma, 3 years younger and born with our mother's golden hair and our father's blue eyes, commanded attention like a magnet commands metal. When she cried, the world stopped. When I cried, I got sent to my room for dramatic behavior. By age 10, I'd mastered the art of invisible excellence. Perfect grades earned brief nods. Clean rooms went unnoticed. When Emma struggled with math, I spent hours teaching her, then watched our parents praise her C+ like it was a Nobel Prize while my A+ got filed away without comment. The pattern crystallized during my high school graduation. I'd earned valedictorian honors and a full scholarship to Northwestern. As I stood at the podium delivering my speech, I spotted Emma in the audience, having a full meltdown about a boy who'd ignored her text messages. Our parents spent my entire speech whispering to her, rubbing her back, completely missing every word I'd worked months to perfect. That night, Emma got ice cream and sympathy. I got, "We're proud of you, honey," delivered while Dad scrolled through his phone. College taught me that competence could be its own reward. I excelled at logistics, at seeing 10 steps ahead, at making complicated things look effortless. My professors noticed. My internship supervisors promoted me. But family dinners remained the same. Emma's dating drama and career confusion consuming all available airtime, while my accomplishments got summarized in polite but distant questions. After graduation, I built a career orchestrating events that mattered. Corporate mergers, charity galas, political fundraisers, occasions where attention to detail meant the difference between success and catastrophe. I learned to read rooms, to anticipate problems before they emerged, to move pieces across complex social chessboards until everything aligned perfectly. At 27, I met David at a client event. He was one of the few people who noticed the 1,000 small decisions that made his company's product launch flawless. "You see everything," he told me over coffee 3 weeks later. "Most people just see the final result." For the first time, someone valued the invisible work I'd been perfecting my entire life. When he proposed 2 years later, I felt like I was finally writing my own story, instead of serving as background scenery in Emma's. But Emma couldn't let me have that spotlight, not even for one day. The conversation that shattered everything happened on a Tuesday evening in March. I was updating vendor contracts for our October wedding when my phone rang. Emma's voice bubbled with fake excitement. "I have the most amazing news," Jake proposed, "and we've set the date, October 15th. Isn't that funny? The same day as yours." The pen in my hand stopped moving. October 15th. The date I'd chosen 18 months earlier, the one printed on save the dates already in our relatives' refrigerators, the one our venue had held for us through 2 contract negotiations. "Emma," I said carefully, "you know that's our wedding date." "Oh, I know, but don't worry, yours is going to be small anyway, right? Just immediate family? All our relatives will come to mind since I'm having it at the Grandview Country Club. You understand." The audacity took my breath away. Not the coincidence, the presumption that I would simply evaporate to make room for her larger celebration. "Have you told Mom and Dad yet?" I managed. "Just got off the phone with them. They're thrilled. Mom said it's perfect timing since everyone will already be thinking about weddings." Emma's laugh tinkled through the speaker. "You're not upset, are you? You're always so understanding about these things." After hanging up, I sat in my kitchen staring at the wedding planning binder that represented 2 years of careful preparation. Every vendor, every detail, every decision made with the methodical precision I'd learned through years of professional event management. That's when I realized Emma had made a crucial miscalculation. She assumed I'd respond like the accommodating little sister who'd spent decades folding herself smaller to make room for her drama. She didn't realize that the same skills I use to coordinate 100-person corporate events could be deployed for more personal purposes. The next morning, I moved to my home office and began making calls. First, I contacted our venue, a historic ballroom downtown with cathedral ceilings and crystal chandeliers. "I'd like to upgrade our package," I told the manager. "We're expecting significantly more guests than originally planned." "How many more?" she asked. I opened my laptop and pulled up the database I'd been building for 3 years. Every contact from David's law firm, every client from my event planning business, every colleague, family friend, and professional connection we'd accumulated. "About 300 more," I said, "and we'll need the grand ballroom instead of the garden room." The manager paused. "Mrs. Chen, that's quite an upgrade. The grand ballroom books out years in advance." "I understand. But we had a cancellation from another client, didn't we? The October 15th slot?" I waited, knowing she'd check her system and find exactly what I'd arranged with a phone call to the right people 20 minutes earlier. My client database included the venue's biggest corporate accounts, and a few strategic conversations had opened exactly the opportunity I needed. "Well, yes, actually, we did have a cancellation for that exact date, but the pricing won't be a problem," I assured her. "I'll wire the deposit this afternoon." The wedding upgrade would cost more than my car, but David's law firm partnership and my business's recent contracts had finally given us the financial flexibility for this kind of investment. Next, I called our caterer. "Change of plans," I told him. "We're going from intimate dinner to full reception. I'll need the premium menu for 350 people. By noon, I'd transformed our small family wedding into an event that would draw guests from 6 states and 3 industries. Every vendor got upgraded orders. The florist went from simple centerpieces to elaborate installations. The photographer expanded from ceremony coverage to full documentation of what would become a significant social gathering. Then I started working my professional network. As an event planner, I'd built relationships across corporate Chicago, CEOs whose galas I'd organized, nonprofit directors whose fundraisers I'd managed, politicians whose campaign events I'd coordinated. All of them owed me favors. All of them understood the social currency of wedding invitations from someone who'd made their own events successful. Within a week, RSVPs were flooding in from people Emma had never heard of, but whose names she'd recognized from newspaper society pages and business journals. The third phase was the most delicate, positioning Emma's event exactly where I needed it. I called her the following Sunday, my voice carefully calibrated to sound helpful rather than competitive. "Emma, I heard you're planning something at Grandview for October 15th. I hope you've secured your vendors already. It's going to be a busy weekend for the wedding industry." "What do you mean?" she asked, the first hint of concern creeping into her tone. "Well, since we're both having events that day, a lot of the premier vendors are getting double booked. I'd hate for you to be scrambling at the last minute." I paused, letting the implication settle. "You have confirmed your photographer, right? And your caterer?" The silence stretched long enough for me to know she hadn't. "Don't worry," I continued sweetly. "I'm sure you'll figure something out. There are always budget options available, even on short notice." That week, Emma discovered what I already knew. The best wedding vendors in the city were either working my event or booked solid. The photographer she wanted was shooting our reception. Her first choice caterer was preparing our menu. The string quartet she'd hoped for was playing our ceremony. Through casual conversations with other vendors, I learned that Emma was growing increasingly frantic as October approached, still scrambling to book decent services for her supposedly grand celebration. By April, her dream wedding at the exclusive country club was being handled by vendors I'd never hire for a corporate lunch, while our downtown celebration had evolved into what industry magazines would later call the social event of the season. But the real masterstroke came in June, when I made one final call. Mrs. Hamilton, I said, reaching the society reporter who'd covered my corporate events for 3 years, you might be interested in covering a unique wedding story this fall. October 15th dawned crisp and clear, the kind of perfect autumn day that makes Chicago look like a postcard. At the venue, I stood in the bridal suite watching my reflection in the full-length mirror as my maid of honor fastened the last pearl button on my dress. Through the tall windows, I could see guests arriving, men in tailored suits and women in designer dresses, stepping out of luxury cars and into the historic ballroom that had hosted governors and business titans. The guest list read like a who's who of Chicago society, all there to celebrate David's marriage to the woman who'd orchestrated their most memorable corporate events. My phone buzzed with a text from Emma. "Where is everyone? Only 12 people showed up so far and it starts in an hour." I set the phone aside without responding. The ceremony itself was perfect in ways that had nothing to do with revenge. David's eyes welled up as I walked down the aisle. His vows made my mother cry for the right reasons. The string quartet played Bach flawlessly. The photographer captured moments I'd treasure forever, regardless of the circumstances that had shaped this particular guest list. After the ceremony, we moved to the cocktail reception, where I navigated through crowds of congratulating guests. During this time, I overheard the conversations that made my months of planning feel truly complete. Remarkable event coordination. She handled the Morrison merger gala brilliantly. David's lucky to marry someone with her professional reputation. For the first time in my life, I was the center of attention for my competence rather than someone else's drama. The invisible work that had always gone unnoticed was finally being celebrated by people who understood its value. At 7 p.m. during the dinner reception, my phone rang. I stepped into a quiet corridor to take the call. Mom's number. "Rachel, honey," she began, her voice strained in a way I'd never heard before. "Your sister is very upset. Her wedding was, well, it didn't go as planned. Could you maybe call her?" I looked back toward the ballroom, where 300 guests were enjoying perfectly coordinated dinner service, while a jazz trio played softly in the background. David caught my eye from across the room and smiled, raising his champagne glass in a private toast. "I'm a bit busy right now, Mom," I said gently. "It's my wedding day." "But she's crying and—" "I'm sure she'll be fine," I interrupted, surprised by how calm I sounded. "She's always been good at landing on her feet." After I hung up, I realized something had shifted. For 29 years, I'd been trained to prioritize Emma's emotional comfort over my own significant moments. Tonight, for the first time, I chose differently. The rest of the evening unfolded like the carefully orchestrated event it was. Dinner transitioned seamlessly to dancing. Speeches highlighted David's career and my professional accomplishments equally. The cake cutting happened precisely on schedule, with perfect lighting and flawless photography. At midnight, as our last guests were saying goodbye, David pulled me aside. "I need to ask you something," he said, his voice curious rather than accusatory. "Did you plan all of this, the guest list, the scale, the timing, to compete with Emma's wedding?" I considered lying, giving him the gracious answer that would preserve everyone's comfort. Instead, I chose honesty. "Yes," I said, "I did." He nodded slowly, then broke into a smile. "Good," he said. "It's about time someone noticed how brilliant you are at this." 3 weeks later, I got a call from Chicago Social Quarterly asking to feature our wedding in their Events of Distinction issue. The photographer had submitted images that showcased not just the celebration, but the flawless execution that made it possible. Emma never mentioned her wedding to me again. Through family conversations, I later learned that Jake had called off their engagement 2 months after their disastrous wedding day. Unable to handle the stress and embarrassment of the failed event, Emma moved back in with our parents temporarily while she rebuilt her life. 6 months later, at our cousin's graduation party held at a local restaurant, I watched the family dynamics that had shaped my entire childhood. Emma held court with stories about her new job search, while our parents listened with their usual rapt attention. But something was different this time. When the conversation naturally turned to current events, Uncle Mark asked me about the corporate merger I'd coordinated the previous month, one that had been covered in the business pages. As I explained the logistics challenge of bringing together 500 executives from competing companies, I noticed the room had gone quiet in a way it never had before. They were listening, really listening, not waiting for Emma to start talking again, but genuinely interested in what I was saying. "That sounds incredibly complex," my father said. "How do you even begin to organize something like that?" I'd waited 29 years for that question. As I answered, describing the months of preparation and coordination required to make complex events look effortless, I realized something profound had changed. I no longer needed their attention to validate my worth, but having earned it through excellence rather than drama felt exactly right. Emma sat silent through my explanation, perhaps understanding for the first time that competence has its own gravity. Our relationship had shifted to polite distance. We exchanged pleasantries at family events, but never discussed what had happened between us. It wasn't reconciliation, but it was peace. The real victory wasn't the wedding day itself, though that was perfect. The real victory was learning that I didn't have to make myself smaller to fit into spaces designed around someone else's needs. I could design my own spaces instead. If you've ever been the overlooked one, the responsible one, the one who makes things work while someone else takes credit, this story is for you. Excellence doesn't always announce itself, but it always finds a way to be recognized by people who matter. Your moment will come. And when it does, make sure you're ready to take up all the space you deserve. Before you go, here's a quick bonus for sticking around. If you love learning and growing like I do, you need to try audiobooks. I've got an exclusive deal with Audible. Your first month is completely free. That's access to over 500,000 titles, zero cost to you. All the details are waiting in the description. Don't miss this one.